Good afternoon, San Luis Obispo. This is Gordon Mullin sitting in for Dave Congalton. Dave is on the mend, and we all hope and pray that he will do so. Hustle up, Dave. Get better. I'm going to be here for the rest of the night. I have three guests coming on. Coming up after this is John Ashbaugh, ex-city council person in San Luis. And after that, Debbie Arnold from 5 to 6. But right now, I have with me Bret Colhouer. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. I knew him because he is, and that's still a discussion, the publisher of Tolosa Press. Bret, thanks for coming.
Gordon, thanks for having me on.
Yep. I appreciate it. So I know you from Tolosa Press. Everybody knows Tolosa Press. We see it all over the county, and that's great stuff. And now you tell me Tolosa Press ain't no more. How come? What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. Well, we formed the Tolosa Press back in 2006. I formed it with Chris and Mary Gardner back then, and before that I'd owned just the SLO City News and the Bay News. And Chris and Mary Gardner started the SLO City News, and then together we formed the umbrella company, the Tolosa Press. But before that, in 2005, we formed a company called Simply Clear Marketing, my wife and I, and that's relevant because that grew very quickly into a big business, and we had hundreds of local clients. In fact, clients across a couple counties in Monterey County and San Luis Obispo County, and we're doing 7 home and garden and health and fitness expos across the 2 counties, and it's been a hugely successful company for us, and it's grown tremendously over the years, and it's exposed us to a lot of other clients, and through the evolution of that company and then the evolution of Tolosa Press, we've just grown and evolved. We've even formed another company called 805 Loyal, which is web development, social media creation and management, reputation management company. We do everything digital that you can think of. And the reason that we formed that company was because of our other 2 companies and the 800 to 900 clients that we have and the needs that we saw from these companies that weren't being serviced locally. And so at an affordable price with great service. And so part of what we did was form this company so that we can just service just our current clients, not even necessarily go after new business. But to speed up the conversation, we've slowly evolved these 3 companies, and here we are today. It just made sense to dissolve those 3 companies, form one company that had 3 different divisions to run a little bit more efficiently and to be able to service our customers a little bit better. So we dissolved Tolosa Press, we dissolved Simply Clear Marketing, which was the event company, and 805 Loyal, which was the digital company, and formed a new company called Simply Clear Marketing and Media that has an event division, a publishing division, and a digital division. And it's been great.
Can we find your publications on the newsstand today?
Yes, definitely. So on the publishing division, we have 4 newspapers now and 4 magazines. So the 4 magazines are all biannual, which means they come out every 6 months. We have Living Lavishly, which is a home and garden magazine. We have Inspired Health, which is a health magazine. 101 Ways to Play, which is a local destination magazine about the county. And then Reveal the Central Coast, which is a destination magazine that we distribute in San Francisco and LA, trying to get consumers to come here and spend their traveling dollars here. And those complement our 3 newspapers we've always had: the Coast News in the 5 cities, the SLO City News in San Luis, and the Bay News in the North Coast. And then we just recently purchased the Avila Beach News from John Sorgenfrey and his team. And so we're excited about that. We just finalized that this last month. And so we just put out our first publication just a few days ago for that. And we're excited about being able to service that community.
Help me out. Let's imagine I'm a widget manufacturer and I sell my widgets kind of in Central California. I got competition. Of course, there's other widget manufacturers, but I'm thinking, I got a really good widget, but I probably need some help telling people about my widgets. And I go to someone like you. How can you help me?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's exactly the type of customer and client that we're looking for. You know, we really envision ourselves as being able to come alongside someone who's a business owner, embracing their vision with their mission and their purposes in their business. And so, you know, we take a real consultative approach, and that's what we do is we come in and we ask a lot of questions because we want to know as much as we can about that business and where they're going and what their plans are. And not just that, but who they are, where they came from, you know, what's their purpose, you know, what's their vision for their company, why do they do what they do? And then we're able to overlay that with some of the marketing concepts that they've already employed, if they have, to see which of those are working and successful. And if not, then we're able to come in with our own team, brainstorm some ideas, bring our creative team in on that. We come up with some different campaigns, some different ideas via, you know, our publishing company, our division, our event division, and our digital division, depending on that. And even if it's outside of our realm, you know, a lot of times we'll buy radio and TV spots, direct mail for our clients if that's what we feel like is a good fit for their product or service based on the demographic, the territory, what it is they're trying to hit.
It would seem to me, let me step back, because I spent 17 years in publishing, and I mostly trade magazines, but a few consumer publications as well. Wrote on a variety of topics, but I always remember the adage. I remember talking to a guy who he was VP of marketing IBM in Canada. And he looked at me and he stole this from somebody else. And he said to me, Gord, you know, I spend over $2 million a year in advertising. Half the money I think is wasted. My problem is, and you've heard this, I don't know which half.
Right. Right.
So it's devilishly hard clearly, in my view, we've seen companies who get to a certain spot and they need to grow, and the only way people have to know your product.
Right.
Now they have to seek out your product more so than ever.
Sure.
But that's a tough thing to determine, to calculate, to monitor.
Oh yeah.
The absence of it is, well, you're not going to live unless you're not going to survive in the consumer realm unless you do. But it's tough to measure or monitor, isn't it?
It really is. You know, some of the new digital products and platforms make it a little easier to identify who's watching, who's seeing, where the impressions are being made. And I mean, there's software now you can put on the back end of your website and know how long people are spending there, what they're doing. If there's a video, if they've clicked on it, how much of it they've watched. So you can pretty much monitor somebody's engagement with your products digitally fairly well these days. But sure, with traditional media, with radio, with TV, there's ratings, obviously, and radio and TV and newspaper, adjudicated newspapers will even say, hey, we have these numbers that justify this. But when it comes down to the end of the day, it's tough for businesses to know how their marketing dollars are working. But that's one of the ways that we can really be of help, I think, as a marketing agency. And as somebody who spends money here locally, we spend about $300,000 here locally. So we understand this market. We understand all the marketing products. And we try to come in and understand your business or the business we're talking to the best we possibly can so that we can help them make decisions and then set up structure along the way to monitor that.
I just want to step in. We're going to have a break in a couple of minutes. My name is Gordon Mullin, and I'm sitting in for Dave Congalton. And we all want to wish Dave a speedy recovery. I understand he's now, well, I don't know, I want to say he's connecting with visitors. But we hope that he gets, he gets well soon. But anyway, my name again is Gordon Mullin. You're listening to News Talk 920 KVEC. Welcome back. This This is Gordon Mullin sitting in for Dave Congalton. You're listening to News Talk 920 KVEC. If you want to join the conversation here with Bret and I, why don't you give us a call? Here's the number, 543-8830 or 1-800-549-5832. I'm talking with Bret Colhouer about, well, all things business, all things marketing, advertising, how to get your business going. That's a tough thing. You've got to deal with people who are A, starting business, and B, have a business already in place. Do you treat them differently?
Yeah, we do actually. And so, where somebody is in their business evolution is very important in terms of what kind of a marketing they're going to end up doing for their business. And so, when we first started out, we didn't spend nearly as much money on marketing that we do now. And so we were just fumbling around and trying to figure it out. And then now here we are 12 years later, very sophisticated firm, spending a large amount of dollars on marketing, not just our products, but our clients' products and services. And so if you're a new business, and we deal with a lot of new businesses, or even if it's not a new business, even if it's an established business, maybe they've never dipped their toes into the marketing pool, if you were. And so they don't have any experience. They're intimidated by marketing in general. They don't know, what to do and which direction to take. And so we're great with those types of clients because, we come in and we ask them the type of questions that are challenging enough to get them to think outside of their box, to think more deeply about their business and their vision than maybe they have in the past. And then we're able to take that and apply it with some of our marketing concepts and start something slow and small with them that can then grow into a larger marketing mix for that business as the business grows.
As I said, I had worked in the publishing business, paper and ink. I loved it. It was great fun. But I was just at the start of the digital age. And now, proportionately, does depend on I guess it depends on the product, how much of a marketing effort is still print, TV, radio, and everything else electronic. But is it mostly electronic now? Is print dying?
That's a great question, and we address that every day. Having 4 newspapers and 4 magazines, you can imagine that we get asked that a lot. One of the first things I say is, we've grown year over year for the past 10 years, and the Tolosa Press has, and the publishing division. We grew again this year. We just took a look at our numbers, and it's not just us. Community newspapers across the nation have been growing year over year, and advertising revenue and relevance and readership. Everybody sees daily newspapers struggling and shrinking. The top 250 dailies are trying to reinvent themselves because people are getting that news, that content in the palm of their hand every day, all day long. And so it's tough to look at that and read that again the next day. And so, but community newspapers, alternative newspapers like the New Times, it's a more unique news style and format. The micro-local news that we bring, you can only find in our publications or online. So it's very unique. It's a very targeted demographic as well that really connects with the community. And so our advertisers really appreciate that. And so it's a little different. But, to get back to your original question, the evolution that's happening, the marketing evolution, there's no doubt that there's a huge digital influence on that right now. And, we've moved heavily into the digital space. There's, a plethora of new digital advertising and marketing products out there. It's changing all the time. Even the largest companies in the world are struggling and trying to figure out, how to manipulate these different platforms and really get engagement from consumers. And so, but we're on the forefront of that locally. We have a whole team of people that are just a digital marketing team. We have a whole video production team now as well, because video is huge across social media platforms and and online. Just in general. And so it's a lot of fun. It's the wild, wild west in a lot of ways. There's a lot of trial and error, but we feel like we have our finger on the pulse in a lot of ways.
I'm looking back like 25 years ago and back 100 years. You're in the newsprint industry. Aside from some changes in the actual printing per se, it was the same product day after day after day, which was a good thing. Mm. But at the same time, 40 to 50% of your revenues used to come from classified ads. Right. Most people didn't know that. And Craigslist came along and others similar and just blew that up.
Oh, yeah.
Classified ads don't exist anymore. My wife, she has to put notices out on Craigslist for rentals, for example. And 15 years ago, she used to have to put it into the newspaper and get it in and pay for it and write it and all that. And then it ran, and then you got some calls. Now she puts it in Craigslist, waits 15 minutes, gets the call she needs, and then turns it off. And it costs nothing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, revolutionary, actually. And so that really changed a lot, like as you said, in the print industry. So, but there's still, a lot of relevance to marketing your company in print products. In fact, direct mail is making a huge comeback right now. Over the past 3-4 years, it's really turned the corner. And I think you're going to see that a lot with a lot of these print products and services. Even newspapers, like I said, we're not going away, but I think even the perception of print media is that it's dying. That perception is going to change. You're going to see that circle back around, and it's going to become more of a novelty. That type of interaction, that tactile experience you get with a printed product opposed to your Nook or your iPad. There's just something you can't replace, and it's going to become popular again, if not still already with a certain demographic.
Certain demographic. I'm in the older demographic. I get 2 newspapers a day, and I subscribe to 3 news magazines. Am I going the way of the dodo?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm the same way. I get the Wall Street Journal and Investor's Business Daily every day, and I still read magazines as well. And I look at my 22-year-old. She doesn't read newspapers. She definitely looks at magazines. But I know as she grows older, becomes more mature, gets a career, has a family, has kids, that she's going to start seeing more relevance in her community. She's going to want to pick up a community newspaper, or again, the New Times does a great job as well. Their alternative news style is not lost relevance here locally or across the nation. You're still seeing those types of print products, thrive, and so. I think there's a thought out there that this baby boomer generation that, is going to be the last generation that really reads newspapers and magazines. I don't think so personally. I see a relevance. We see a younger readership happening among alternative newspapers and community newspapers and magazines. It's still there. As I said, there's going to be a resurgence, I think, that's going to happen too in a few years.
Vinyl records came back.
Exactly. Exactly. There's a record store downtown, Forum Records. I don't know if you know that, in the back of the Sports Forum. And he does well back then.
It's odd seeing records again, people playing them, have turntables, etc. We're going to be going to a break in just a minute. My name is Gordon Mullin. I'm sitting in for Dave Congalton. You're listening to News Talk 920 KVEC. If you're interested in this conversation, give us a call, 543-8830, 1-800-549-5832. We'll be right back.
The day destroys the night. Night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side, yeah.
You're listening to the Dave Congalton Show. No, I'm not Dave. My name is Gordon Mullin. I'm sitting in to Dave. Dave is recuperating as we speak. You're listening to News Talk 920 KVEC, or you're listening to the new FM 96.5. You could be doing that as well. I've listened to the FM one. Some places around the county, it's better than the AM one. I'm sure different people try it out. But I'm talking with Bret Colhouer today. You may know him through Tolosa Press, but one of the things that he brought up, I think may be of interest, at least it's certainly of interest to me, is he's in the process of adopting. I was a foster father for a while. I kind of had some inkling of this process, but I'm really kind of curious finding out what that process looks like today. If you want to get in this conversation, by the way, give us a call at 543-8830 or 1-800-549-5832. Bret, tell me about this fostering process.
Yeah, so my wife and I are in the process of a FOS adopt, which means that we're going to adopt a child out of the foster care system. And we first had to be certified as foster parents. And we just completed that process. And
what was that like?
It was very interesting. It was a lot of fun, actually. And so it was a few months of classes. The organization that we're working with is called the Kinship Center. And they're very hands-on. And so we had to meet weekly for classes. They go through all the ins and outs of possibly some of the challenges that you would have with a child out of the foster care system, from terms of, fear of abandonment to, drug exposure. I mean, anything you can think of, really. Some of these kids have been damaged emotionally and physically, might be behind developmentally. And so there's things that you need to know and be aware of. And then they were also great about teaching us techniques to deal with these kids and the potential child that we might have. And so a lot of it was parenting techniques, just interpersonal relationship-based techniques. And we found it fascinating, very interesting. As parents already, we have 3 children. It was interesting to overlay some of these techniques with the parenting techniques that we've used throughout the years on our children, and compare and contrast those because they are different.
Where are you in the process?
So we've completed the classes. We're certified foster parents. We have a home study that still needs to happen. And so the Kinship Center is going to come out and take a look at our home. And if you're before the adoption is final, once the adoption is final, the home is your home, and it's your child. It doesn't necessarily matter what's going on in the home. Obviously it does, but I mean, in terms of what the state, requires. But as for the portion that you're going to be fostering, which could be 9 months or a year, depending on how long the separation happens, because the process is these children are taken out of their home because of something bad that's happening there. In most cases, drug addiction. And then they're put into a foster care situation until an adoption is made available, because the child has been legally separated from their parents. And so they give the parents every opportunity, to get their life back in order, to make things right, and to, reconstitute their home. But if that doesn't happen, then there's this process, and the kids are living with you, and you have to have your home. It's unbelievable. You have to have everything locked up. I mean, even things like Windex, can't be accessible, Advil, everything's got to be locked up. Rugs have to be secured to the floor. I mean,
Are we talking state rules?
They are. Yeah.
What a surprise. The rules from the state. Oh, shocking.
Yeah.
Your rugs have to be nailed down?
Pretty much, everything has to be secured. Those are just a couple, but there's dozens of regulations that, they all center around the safety of the child, and so they just want to make sure that there's no opportunity for the child to get hurt. I mean,
we could always bubble wrap them. Somehow or other, your 3 kids got to be teenagers living in this place, and now the state says no, we gotta bubble
well, you
wrap
can imagine
kids.
The large variety of homes and the different state of those homes. And so part of the home study is just to make sure that it's, everything's in proper order, and it's a great place for this kid to not just live, but to thrive. And so that's what's next. And then once that happens, we'll be eligible, which we think is probably going to be, in the next couple months. And we're excited. It could happen right away. It could happen a year from now, but, we've identified our range is, we have our youngest is 8, and so we wanted, we have all girls, and so we know girls, we do girls well. I think we didn't want to throw a boy into the mix, and so chose a young girl, maybe 5 to 6 years old, which means we'll be shown young girls 4 to 7, somewhere in that age range. And they do a lot of matching on their end, and there's a lot that they do that, an algorithm, if you will, for lack of a better term, that they have to suit you and to match you with certain children. So they're pretty good at that, and we've heard the Kinship Center is the best, which is why we picked them. And so we're excited about the process.
Any feel for the need for more foster parents?
Well, I know there is, definitely. And so the organization we're using uses the social service systems up and down the state of California. But I know just in our county, there's 250 to 300 kids, I don't know the exact number, that are in the foster care system that could be adopted right now.
I'm sure it fluctuates daily.
Yes. And so, but I mean, there's a need right there, even just locally.
So wait a minute, let me just go over that. You're saying right today there's somewhere between 200 and 300 kids that if there were homes, if there were couples who stepped up and said, I'll take one.
Yes.
200 to 300
Right.
kids waiting.
Yeah. And that's the thing is there's loving homes that they're in right now that are fostering, but they're not permanent homes. And there is a big difference, in being in a foster home or a variety of foster homes and being adopted by a family.
Well, let me just clarify. Let me clear this, because there's, how many stages are there? There are the ones who take the kids because they just get pulled out of some bad situation. Right. There's that. That's different than fostering, correct? Right. And that in the next stage is perhaps adoption. Yes. Correct? Is that the process?
It is. I mean, there's different types of foster parents. There's ones like you talked about that are there for emergency care. It might be a weekend or a week or a couple weeks. And then there's longer term foster parents that are in the system specifically just to be there as a stopping point until those children are adopted. And it could be, years,
Where are you? What are you wanting to be?
Well, so we're not interested in fostering, even though we know that's part of the process. We're interested in being matched up with the child and then adopting. And if having that child live in our home for 9 months or a year until the adoption is final is considered fostering, if that's part of the process, then we're open to that and we're okay with that. Even though it might mean that we might get hurt at the end. I mean, the child could be with us for 9 months and then they reconcile with their parents, and which ultimately might be a great thing if the parents get their act together. I mean, isn't that really what we would want? We just want a healthy, safe home for the children. So,
well, my kudos to you for stepping up. Let me just ask, if someone wanted to, someone out there today said, that's something I want to look into, who would they call?
Well, I think the Kinship Center is amazing. They're based in Monterey, but they have an office in Templeton. And I think they also operate in San Luis. I think they have an office in San Luis Obispo too. But they're a great local organization, and they have all the resources, all the knowledge about the other organizations out there too. They're formal. The two people we worked with most closely both used to work in the social service system, so they're also familiar with that, which is another way that you can adopt children is through the social service system. And so they seem to know the ins and outs of all of it, and it's a great place to start is the Kinship Center.
One of the things we talked about a bit ago is, I went to a show in Tascadero, kind of a trade show, 2 weeks ago. It was filled with people who had in the pot industry. There was some people who had different kinds of seeds that they're trying to market, to machines that harvest pot and various chemicals that grow it, and the marketing thereof. Met a guy who his insurance company specializes in the whole pot industry, from basically from seeds to sales, the whole thing. They're all looking to, I guess Colorado is a couple years ahead of us and we're with the change in the proposition. We're looking to move in that direction now, and you know something about this, don't you?
Well, I do. I'm fascinated by it just because we live here in California, where I'm in the news business, and so we report on it. So there's lots of fascinating aspects about it, and so yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to go to a break. We're going to be back in a minute. My name's Gordon Mullin. I'm sitting in for Dave Congalton. You're listening to News Talk 920 KVEC, and if you want to get in on this conversation, give us a call, 543-8830, 1-800-549-5832.
And don't forget the new 96.5.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Dave Congalton Show. Dave is not here today. Probably will be out the balance of the week. He's recuperating. My name is Gordon Mullin. I'm sitting in. You're listening to News Talk 920 KVEC. And, of course, you're listening, perhaps, on the new FM 96.5 as well. I'm talking with Bret Colhouer. He knows a lot more about advertising and marketing than I do. And I just mentioned to him that I went to a kind of a little conference in Atascadero a couple of weeks ago, and it was only for people who had something to do with pot. Insuring pot, moving pot, growing pot, distributing it, etc. And I know, and probably you out there know, that it's going to happen, but Bret's familiar with this stuff. At least on the marketing side? Perhaps the consumption side? All right,
easy, Gordon, easy.
Okay.
But yeah, we definitely have a few clients in the industry that have been around as medical marijuana suppliers, if you will. Up until recently, it's just been allowed as a delivery service, and so the business model's been much different than what I think it's going to be evolving into. So we follow it. We've done a lot of articles and done a lot of interviews and published a lot around the subject because we know it's coming like a tsunami, not like a big wave that's going to be crashing down on a particular day or time, but it's going to slowly be overtaking our state and the smaller municipalities that make up our state, and it's there's states or the cities and smaller municipalities are scrambling right now to put regulations in place. So some of them did back in March of this year before the anticipated yes vote to legalize marijuana, and so there is so much from the business end around this. I think that's going to be happening that. I'm fascinated by it from a business standpoint, definitely from a marketing standpoint. I mean, just from, right now the clients that we deal with are somewhat unsophisticated in the terms of the way they run their business because it's been, kind of in a gray area, not necessarily allowed, but allowed, and no brick and mortar. I mean, you're going to see big business come in and jump into this industry very quickly. This is going to become very commercialized very fast. It's going to become very big business very fast. The manufacturing end of it, the sales end of it. I mean, we've seen it in Colorado. We've seen it in Oregon. I talked to a detective in Oregon a number of months ago. He told me that the state of Oregon made $11 million, I think, in the first 3 days that it was legalized, just in sales tax. And so there's definitely a lucrative opportunity here for the state of California. I know locally Grover Beach has already instituted a sales tax on the sale of marijuana, even though they haven't necessarily put anything in place to allow dispensaries to operate.
They're not taxing the delivery companies, are they?
They're not, but it's on potential sales of a dispensary, which is headed that way soon. So
it seems to me that there is, maybe I should ask Debbie Arnold's coming on later on today. I'm going to ask her about what the county's planning on doing. But when I went to this conference, one of the things looking at is seeing, frankly, I'm a financial planner. Anybody here want to open up a retirement plan for your employees? The difficulties, it turns out, which I knew before, they're not in the banking system. They're cash people.
Well, now they are.
Well, they're just starting to get.
Right.
Most banks won't accept them as clients.
No, they can't right now. I don't think legally they can, but now that it is legal, I think you're going to see that all changing.
The feds are going to have a lot to do with it because some banks are all wound around in federal regulation. And I know from my time as sitting on the a board of SLO that there is so many regulations that most banks won't touch it. Not that they are against it necessarily, but there are regulations that they will have to let the feds know if they think there's a client who has nothing to do with pot. They're going to have to tell the feds, and they just simply say, we're not going to get into that. We're not going to mess with it.
But all these roadblocks really are an opportunity for someone else, aren't they?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So I think that's what you're going to see is you're going to see this, there's so many layers to this topic, and there's so many layers to the business aspect of this topic, and there is a lot of dollars associated with this industry, this vertical. So
it's not if, it's when.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's going to happen.
And I know the county, you might ask Debbie, we did an article not too long ago about the county. There's some ordinances or regulations already in place in terms of permitting for growers. So I know that they've made strides on a county level. And so there's things happening around our county, and it's just a matter of time before everyone has to pick one side of the fence, whether they're going to ban it, whether they're going to allow it, what are some of the rules and regulations going to be around it. And it's going to be very interesting, very fascinating to watch it all play out. And we plan to document all that, publish as much as we can about it in our newspapers and magazines.
I would anticipate that if one city opens it up and now there's a business, people go there, they start buying, the sales tax started going, next door cities are going to say to themselves, man, we want some of that too, don't we? And then it'll turn into just like we deal with alcohol.
Yeah.
Eventually.
It has to, and you see it evolving as such. But you nailed it right there. Once, the millions of dollars start flowing through these cities' coffers, the other cities are just going to be falling into place. There's no way that you wouldn't. There's too many things that you can do on a positive level with that money. So there's budgets are too strapped everywhere because of the way our state this has been run over the recently. We don't need to get into that, but it's there's things happening that these dollars could potentially be the solution for, and so I think that's really attractive, and it's ideologically it's really challenging a lot of these different city philosophies and council members and just different municipalities are going to have to struggle with this, and they're going to have to come up with a solution that's going to make sense for them and for their constituents.
I would anticipate that 5 years from now, this won't be the discussion that we're going through now. It's new. We haven't experienced it before. We're nervous, and there'll be opposition. We know that. And politicians being politicians, if they accept it, embrace it, they're not going to necessarily get votes because they do that, but they can be assured they're going to lose votes by embracing it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it is more widely accepted than some other things. I mean, it's if you put it in context, I think it's more accepted than plastic bags or plastic bottles are locally. So it kind of depends on where you lie with that type of thing, but. a lot of people don't think that it's necessarily the evil that it is. The reality is it's here, and we need to pave a path for it, and be prepared for some of the consequences of the larger business aspect of it.
I'm kind of on the periphery of business. You're right in the thick of it, and I'm envious because you're going to be watching this from close up. I kind of look at it from a distance away. I've been talking with Bret Colhouer. You know him from Tolosa Press and a marketing company, and I want to thank you very much for coming in. Thanks for telling us your story. My name's Gordon Mullin, and you all have, of course, been listening to News Talk 920, KVEC, and the new FM 96.5. We'll be right back.